Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we're talking about a new release coming soon from Huda Beauty. This is the Pretty Grunge collection. At the center of this collection is this year's large palette release. All of these things will be available on November 1st. You'll be able to get a few of these pieces from Sephora, and anything that's not offered on the Sephora site will be available on the Huda Beauty website. The Pretty Grunge palette is the same shape and size as all the other large palettes. They come out once a year from Huda Beauty, and it's the same price, $69 US. We also have a brand new cheek product. This is the Blush Gloss. Very interesting new formula. This will be $39 US. And then I also have this Pretty Grunge Lip Duo. It has a plumping silk balm and the black liquid matte lipstick. I wasn't able to view the price on this, but if I can find it while I'm editing this video, I'll either put it up on the screen here or I'll add it into the description box. I could see the prices of everything else on the Huda site, but when I click on the Lip Duo, it doesn't pop up, so I'll try to figure it out. I want to show you close-ups, swatches, a few comparisons with the palette, and of course I'll show you all of these products in action. We'll start with the blush gloss and the lip duo and work our way up to the eyeshadow palette.
Let's start with this blush gloss product. This is a brand new formula to the Huda Beauty line, and I know that it looks like it's this silvery sort of powder with the image Pretty Grunge pressed into it. This is actually a completely clear gloss. That Pretty Grunge lettering that you see is in the pan that's underneath. So I thought the same thing when I saw pictures of this, that this was like a silvery powder looking type of thing. It is a clear gloss in the pan here. That silvery appearance is an effect of the pan underneath being viewed through that waxy type of texture. So this product, I expected to absolutely hate it, and I am surprisingly impressed with the way that it works, with the performance of the product actually on the skin, which you'll get to see a little bit later. When I first dipped into this, I didn't pick very much up, and I thought, oh, this is kind of weak sauce. It doesn't really do that much for me. But it actually looks a lot better on the face than it does in this swatch, and it is surprisingly long wearing. It didn't completely dry down, but I've now been wearing this for several hours. I would say probably 6 hours, and it's still present and accounted for on my cheeks. It's not my favorite color personally. It's just not something that I'm into, but it definitely works a lot better than I thought it would, especially if you really get in there and really layer it up. You get that classic, pH color changing, bright bubblegum pink type of color. At least that's how it looks on me, but I feel like it looks like that on everybody. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you get a different color. Another surprise, although less of a pleasant surprise, is this Grunge Lip Duo. Now, the matte liquid lipstick worked just fine for me. I really like Huda's matte liquid lip formula. It's pretty comfortable. It definitely doesn't feel all dry and cracked and gross on my lips like some really matte lipsticks tend to. So the ex-wife shade is fine. It definitely started to come off in spots and get a little patchy as I wore it, but it lasted pretty well, and for the comfort level, I do not have any qualms with the liquid matte lipstick. The one that is my problem is this Goth Gloss Silk Balm. I love the original Silk Balm. It was not a plumping formula. It was just comfortable and hydrating, and it was like a cute little clear gloss, and it was great. So I was expecting this to be like that because it's the same packaging. It's a Silk Balm, and you know what? It hurt my lips so badly that I could only really leave it on for a minute or two, which you will see me apply it later on in the video. I gave it a fair shot, couldn't wait to get it off. It was so incredibly uncomfortable. I would definitely categorize it as painful, and there is nothing in this world that could convince me to put that plumping gloss back on my lips. I could not wait to take it off. It was such an unpleasant experience. Other people don't hate plumping glosses as much as I do, but if you even a little bit dislike them, don't put this anywhere near your lips. It hurts so bad. Now, I know I've not really liked much from this collection yet. You know, the cheek thing was fine, but the palette is really beautiful. You'll see the shades are not anything groundbreaking, but where I think the Huda Beauty palettes really shine isn't necessarily always shade selection, although there have been some bangers in the past. Mercury Retrograde is still one of my favorite palettes of all time, but where the Huda palettes really shine is formula and performance. There are 11 true matte eyeshadows in this palette, and they are silky, blendable, opaque. They can be layered without disappearing. They can be mixed and matched and just piled on with no problems. And sometimes, especially with these very light colors, very cool toned lavendery type of colors, I feel that across the board, those are the types of shades that tend to disappear on me. They tend to muddy up on me. I've had that experience with a lot of different brands, and these shadows gave me none of those problems. You can probably tell just from looking at these shadows in the pans that the shimmers are a variety of different textures. You'll be able to tell a little bit more clearly what to expect from each shadow when you see the swatches. But from the silky, satiny, more basic metallics all the way up to these super foily, almost wet looking metallics, I have no complaints. I love a super bright, very, very shimmery metallic shade, and this palette is loaded with those. There's also a dark black cream shadow called Grunge. This you could probably use as a liner, but my preferred method is to use this cream shadow as an eyeshadow base. This adds so much depth to the shimmers in particular, and you will get to see that process in action later on in the tutorial portion. It doesn't crease up on me. I don't have problems with cracking, bleeding, disappearing. Like I said, I've been wearing the makeup that you see me apply in this video for several hours, and it still looks pretty much just like it did when I applied it. I have more of my mascara causing me problems than the actual eyeshadow. And from the swatches here, you can tell they perform almost better with a brush than they do with the finger swatches. I didn't brush swatch the cream shadow because I didn't want to gunk up any of my brush bristles. But across the board, very, very happy with the performance of these shades. I am going to do some comparison swatches for you because at the end of the day, despite the fact that this palette is really beautiful and high performing and all of that good stuff, it is still a neutral palette. And, you know, it's not breaking any new ground as far as color stories go. A lot of folks have said it looks too similar to the Empowered palette from last year. Is that from last year? I think it is. You know, it's not completely dissimilar. There are definitely a few shades in here that look quite alike, but in general, Empowered is way more orange and warm toned. You can get a much closer rendition of this color story if you mix the Wild Jaguar palette and the Rose Quartz palette together. Still a little bit more warm leaning, especially in terms of some of the pinky shades, but this is a lot closer, in my opinion, than the Empowered palette comparison. A few people were asking about the new Natasha Denona palette. I don't have that one, so I can't do a comparison with that for you, but I do have a couple of worthwhile ColourPop palette comparisons. First up, the champion of all of my swatch comparison videos, the Mega Palettes. This is the Stone Cold Fox Mega Palette from ColourPop, and you can see it's pretty close here. Definitely closer than I think any of the Huda comparisons. We are missing the mark on a couple of the more purpley shades, but in general, you could do a lot of the same eye looks using the Stone Cold Fox palette. And what I think is the most impressive comparison is a combination of my beloved Troublemaker palette mixed with some of the neutrals from the 1111 palette. I think this is pretty darn close as well. And I'm incredibly pleased with the performance of the three ColourPop palettes that I showed here. So if this pretty grunge isn't in your budget or just not something you're interested in purchasing, there are some great ColourPop alternatives out here for you.
Now that you've seen all the swatches and the close-ups, I want to show you all of these products in action. And I'll wrap up all my thoughts on the performance, the formulas, all of that good stuff along the way.
I think I already pretty well covered my thoughts on the lip products here. This Goth Gloss is definitely not it for me. Despite my love for the original Silk Balm, I would definitely recommend that one over this version. And you know what? I really do like the black liquid matte lipstick as well. I think that one worked just fine for me. So you'll see me apply that in a little bit. I prefer that black liquid lip over the plumping Hell Gloss. Now, speaking of glosses, here's a blush gloss. Didn't know I would be using those words, but here we are. And as you can see, it is much brighter and more dramatic on the cheeks versus how it looked in the swatch on my hand. This just isn't my favorite color, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make other shades with this product. I think this is just really what you get with these pH color changing type of things. For me, they all look this color. And while I was impressed with the texture, with the color payoff, and honestly with the way that it continues to look after hours of wear, I thought this was going to be sliding off my face, disappearing, rubbing off in 2 seconds, and it really didn't do that. So I'm more impressed with the longevity, with the performance than I thought I was going to be, but it's just not the color for me, and it's also not a very grunge color at all. So just missed the mark. Theming wise, I think this would have been better suited for like a springtime release, I guess. Now, while we're talking about theme, I also don't think that the color palette from the eyeshadows really fits the grunge theme. Certainly, you could do some sort of grungy 90s type of looks with this color palette, but I think that the overall effect is something that's a little bit more of a smoky, sultry glam and not so much a grunge. I do think that a really grungy palette would need some more burgundy tones, some more eggplant, maybe some olivey greens, maybe like a dirty gold type of color. This is all gorgeous as far as neutral palettes go. This pretty grunge palette definitely works for me. It definitely has a lot of shades that I'm interested in, that I've enjoyed using, that I'll continue to enjoy using, but it just seems more Hollywood glamour, sultry, smoky, sexy glam to me. Truly, my biggest criticism of the eyeshadow palette itself is just that it doesn't really fit the expectation for me of grunge. Also, I think some of the shade names are kind of cringy, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I like using the palette. I do recommend it if you're interested in this type of color story, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for an actual grunge look. I also want to point out for this part of the tutorial, just really quickly, I have listed haphazard and strong AF together like I do when I'm blending the shadows, but here I have haphazard on my pinky. I'm applying that to the outer part of my lid, and then I'm covering the rest of my lid with that strong AF shade. So they're not just mixed together. I am doing gray on the inside and that deep purpley shade on the outside. And I wasn't super precise with those because I knew I was going to add some more depth into the crease and blend it all together, which it did very easily work out for me. So I don't mind not being exactly perfect anyway, but for this like grungy, smoky glam look, I felt like, you don't have to be too perfect. In fact, you never have to be too perfect if you don't want to be. And I could not resist adding some of this super bright, sparkly silver right to the center of the lid. This is probably my favorite shade in the whole palette. This really, really foily silver metallic shade called Rebel is just absolutely gorgeous. I love a bright, intense silver shadow, and this one's really working for me. Ultimately, I really like how the entire look turned out. Clearly, the eyeshadow palette is my favorite part. It's my top pick. It's the thing that I'm going to quickly run back to, pick up tomorrow, use again over and over. I think the blush is a cool idea. It's just not really the right color for me, and I don't think that it's very grungy. So, it's interesting. I like seeing something new, even if it's not the perfect thing for me. I always love to see what's coming out next. I like to try new stuff. It's not going to be one that I love and put in my must haves, but I'm glad I tried it and I was pleasantly surprised. It worked out better than I thought.
I think it's nice that you'll be able to get this from Sephora during the VIB sale. Hopefully this won't be excluded for any reason, but being able to get 20% off right out the gate is definitely a pretty good deal, especially because this is a really pricey palette. Almost $70 is a lot for a palette. Even though I personally think it's worth it, I really enjoy the Huda Beauty eyeshadow formula. It's one that I go back to a lot. I've continued to use and love these palettes, particularly the large palettes over the years. So to me, it's worth it. It may not be the same case for everybody. Just like for some people, they love Natasha Denona shadows or Pat McGrath shadows. And to me, I don't really feel like forking over all that cash for those. It's just not worth it to me. But for other people, it is. It doesn't mean that they're wrong or I'm wrong. It's just a matter of personal taste. And this is an eyeshadow formula that I really love. I really gravitate towards often. And personally, I think it's worth it just because of how much I use it. But it's even more worth it if it's on sale. I think the theming's a little bit off. I think this is more of like a smoky, sultry glam and not so much a grunge look. It's just my take on it. I still like the palette. I just think it's more glam than grunge, but I like it. I'm definitely going to use it. This is a great staple neutral type of palette, and I love that there are a lot of true neutrals, some really, really beautiful silvers and like purple leaning colors in here, which are some of my favorites. I'd love to know what you think. Are you with me? You think it's pretty, but the theming's off? Do you think it's really grunge and you love it? Are you over neutrals and cool tones? We definitely don't always have to agree as long as everybody's nice to each other about it. But you guys are always really good at that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Oh, almost dropped it. Not good. Uh, 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 I thought my little crescent moon black cat earrings were perfect for this look because I knew I was going to do kind of a vampy, spoopy look. Who knew I was going to be a smoky glam girl, but I've been loving it. I need to wash my brushes really badly. Be better than me. Wash your brushes more than I do. I always think that I need to wash my brushes for like a solid 10 days before I actually get around to doing it. It's fine. That's fine. I have so many videos that I'm working on. I'm a little overwhelmed, to be honest with you. Send help. Okay. Where was I? Doing great. Doing great. Okay. Focus. I love silver eyeshadow. I love it. Huh? Spooky but cute. So we'll start with the blush, blush gloss. Why is that so hard to say? Huh? What? All right. I'm gonna go get this edited so that I can post it for you so that I can get to work on my next batch of videos. I have a lot of cool stuff that I'm working on right now. I'm really excited about it. This month, November and December are going to be lots of good videos. I'm shooting to have a lot of extra videos, so it's going to be fun. I have collabs, we're going to have giveaways, we're going to have all kinds of fun stuff. And I'm working on my best of the year. There's some upsets, there's some shakeups this year in the best of the year video. So it's gonna be a wild ride. I hope that you will be on that wild ride along with us. Okay. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great day. Love your face so much, and I will see you real soon in the next one. All right. Bye.